All right, let's talk about something you might think is, well, a little academic church history. But what if I told you this isn't just some old story? That it's actually a 2,000-year-long battle for truth, an epic drama that's more personal than you could ever imagine.
Look, I get it. The moment you hear the word history, maybe your eyes start to glaze over. You're thinking about memorizing dates, names, boring stuff from a textbook you had to read in school. It can feel so dry and, let's be honest, completely disconnected from real life.
But hang on. What if we've been looking at this all wrong? What if this isn't some dusty old subject, but an actual story? A story that leads directly to you, to your life, and to what you believe right now. Okay, so first things first, we've got to get past this idea of a stuffy old history book. We're talking about a faith that has survived for 2 millennia. That's not just some abstract idea, it's a living, breathing thing that grew from real, solid roots. And trust me, those roots matter a lot.
This is really the core of it. Christianity isn't what you'd call a progressive faith, one that's designed to morph and change with every new cultural trend. No, if you disconnect it from its roots, it just becomes something else entirely. It's a historical faith because it's anchored in this absolutely wild claim that a real person, Jesus, actually lived, actually died, and actually rose from the dead. These are presented as real historical events, not just myths.
And that brings us to the first huge reason why this story is so important. Knowing this history gives us what you could call spiritual guardrails. It's what keeps our faith on the right road and stops it from veering off into ideas that have nothing to do with where it all started.
Second, this story is filled with actual heroes. And I'm not talking about the kind you see in the movies. We're talking about real people whose lives were, frankly, more compelling and more unbelievable than any Hollywood script.
Think about it. We all know how to react to fictional heroes, right? We cheer when the big movie star saves the world for the 10th time. It's exciting, we feel a rush, but deep down we know it's just a movie. Now compare that to a real person from history, like the Apostle Paul. Here's a guy who was literally stoned by a furious mob and left for dead on the side of the road. And what does he do? The very next day, he gets up, dusts himself off, and walks to the next town to keep preaching. I mean, that is a whole different universe of heroism. And this is why it's so critical. The people we choose to look up to, our heroes, they become our compass. They end up shaping our own ideas about what courage and conviction really look like. And church history, it gives us this incredible lineup of heroes to draw inspiration from. Now, this is where the story gets really intense, because this whole thing wasn't some peaceful, straight-line journey of ideas. Oh no, it was a constant, knockdown, drag-out fight, a 2,000-year war for the very soul of the Christian message.
Probably one of the best ways to think about church history is to see it as a battle for the Bible. It's the ongoing story of this massive struggle between what's called orthodoxy, the core foundational beliefs, and heresy, which were ideas that threatened to completely twist that original message.
And these weren't small, friendly disagreements over coffee. The early church was slammed with huge intellectual challenges. You had things like Gnosticism, which said you needed some secret mystical knowledge to be saved, or Arianism, which straight up denied that Jesus was divine. These weren't just theories. They forced early Christians to get crystal clear on what they actually believed and why.
And make no mistake, this battle was paid for in blood. People didn't just write arguments. They were thrown in prison, they were tortured, they were executed, all because they refused to back down from what they believed was the truth. Their sacrifice is a direct line to the freedoms many of us have today to even hold these beliefs. So, after hearing about these epic, high-stakes battles, it can all feel a little distant, right? So, let's bring it right back home. Let's talk about how you, personally, fit into this story by exploring your spiritual family tree.
Here's a kind of surprising thought for you. You are a theologian. And no, that doesn't mean you need a fancy degree or a library full of leather-bound books. It's actually something much more fundamental.
So, theology is basically the study of God and how God relates to the world. And if you think about it, every single one of us has some kind of opinion about God, whether God exists, what God is like, what it all means. Well, guess what? That means every single person has a theology. It's the foundation of your entire worldview.
And this theology, this set of beliefs, wasn't just invented or found in a book. It was passed down, person to person. I mean, look at this. The Apostle John, who walked with Jesus, he taught a man named Ignatius. Ignatius then taught a guy named Polycarp. And Polycarp taught another man named Irenaeus. It's this incredible, unbroken, hand-to-hand chain of faith.
And that's the whole point. When you start to understand this history, you realize you're actually part of that same chain. You're not just making up your faith as you go. Knowing this spiritual lineage, it gives you this powerful sense of who you are and where you come from.
So, for our final point, what on earth does a 2,000-year-old story have to do with our crazy modern world? Well, it turns out this isn't just an old story. It's one that's very much still being written.
You hear it all the time, right? People will argue that the Christian message is just old, that it's archaic, old-fashioned, totally out of touch, and frankly, irrelevant to the real problems and questions we have today.
But here's the thing. The entire 2,000-year story we've just been talking about is the ultimate comeback to that argument. History itself proves that this same message has transformed lives in every kind of culture imaginable through falling empires and new revolutions in every single corner of the world.
When you zoom out and look at the whole sweep of history, the big takeaway is actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful. The core message at the heart of this whole story, it doesn't have an expiration date. Its power just doesn't fade with time.
And that leaves us with one final, unavoidable thought. This story didn't end hundreds of years ago in a history book. It is still going. It's happening right now. So the real question isn't just about what happened back then, it's what happens next. What's your chapter going to be?